Welcome, class. Today we're going to learn how to multiply decimals. We're going to be multiplying by a power of 10 to begin with. And just a reminder, a power of 10 is 10 multiplied by itself a certain number of times. For example, 10 times 1 is 10, or 10 times 10 is 100, or 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. So when we multiply 10 by itself a certain number of times, we add a 0. Okay, so let's try using that to multiply a decimal number. So to begin with here, let's take a look at this quarter, 25 cents. Now here, I have multiplied 25 cents by 10. That looks like this. In math, that would be 25 hundredths times 10. And if I add all of this money up here, I get $2.50. Or I could say 2 and 5 tenths. 2 and 5 tenths. What we want to notice as we're multiplying decimal numbers by powers of 10 is what happens to the decimal. Notice where the decimal is here. It's next to this 2. It's on one side of the 2. And it's moved over to this side of the 2. 25 cents became $2.50 because I have 10 of them. Next, let's take a look at these nickels. Here I have one nickel worth 5 cents, or 5 hundredths. That's how we read this decimal number, because the 5 is in the hundredths place. And here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 nickels. So we can say that that's 5 hundredths, or 5 cents, times 10. And 5 nickels equals 50 cents. And if we're writing that as a decimal number, we'd probably get rid of the 0 because we don't really need it. Any zeros after a decimal number, number are irrelevant. They don't really count. Usually when we write money, we have a 0 there. But the important thing is here, notice what happened to the decimal. Here it was way over to the left, far from the 5. And here it's right next to the 5. It has moved next to the 5. It's moved over next to the 5 there. Let's look at another example. So here we're working with money because money's familiar. We work with money all the time. If you have a piggy bank and you save up your money, then this is some math you've probably done. Here we've got a dime. It's worth 10 cents, or 10 hundredths. And if we have 10 of those, it looks like this. 10 cents times 10. And if I have 10 dimes, that's worth $1. $1. I can add zeros after the decimal, but remember what I said. Any numbers, any zeros after a number in the decimal, they aren't really needed. I can leave them there or not. But the important thing here is, let's take a look at what happens to the decimal. Here it's on the left side of the 1, and it has moved to the right side of the 1. See that? Last example here. Let's take a look at these pennies here. Here we've got 1 penny worth 1 cent, or 1 hundredth. Down here I've got 10 pennies. That would look like this. It would look like 1 hundredth times 10. And 10 pennies, well, that equals 10 cents. So in this example, 10 cents, I could just write a 1 in the tenths place. That means 1/10. I can add a 0 after it. We usually do that when we're writing money, but remember, it doesn't need to be there. It doesn't really mean anything. That's what we've been looking at those other examples. But most importantly, look here. See how that decimal is far from the 1? It has a 0 holding the place before it. It's far from the 1. And here, it's right next to the 1. It has moved over. It has moved over 1 place. So for each of these examples, we see that here we had 25 cents. The decimal is on the left of the 2. And when we multiply by 10, it moved over once to this side. Here we had 5 cents. The decimal's far from the 5. And we multiply by 10. And now it's right next to the 5. The decimal moved once. Here we had 10 cents times 10. The decimal was on the left of the 1, and it moved once to the right side. And same thing for the penny. And that gives us our rule. So in your math notebook, you should write this rule down. The rule is to multiply a power of 10, move the decimal point to the right, one place for each 0. Here's the important part in pink. Move the decimal point to the right, one place for each 0. Let's do some examples just to be real clear. Let's move the decimal 1 point for each 0. So here we have the number 6/10. I'm actually just going to write that out right here, 6/10. And I need to move the decimal 1 point to the right for each 0. So how many zeros are there? I see 1, 2, 2 zeros. So I'm going to move the decimal twice. Once, twice. The decimal is now going to be here. When I move a decimal over, that means I also, so now the decimal is moved, so it's not here anymore. Now it's over there. But what is keeping that 6 from just sliding right over? I need to put something there, a placeholder, to keep it from sliding over. I need to add a 0. So I started out with 6/10. Started out with 6/10. I'm actually going to write it like this. There we go. And that decimal moved over twice, and now I have 60. Let's look at another example. Down here, we've got 500ths times 10. So 500ths times 10 means I'm going to start with my decimal place here. And how many zeros are in this power of 10? There's just 1 0. So I'm going to move the decimal place 1 time to the right. Now the decimal place is going to be here. I've moved the decimal over. So the rule is count how many zeros there are and move the decimal to the right. Move the decimal this direction that many times. And I recommend making these little bounces. I think the bounces are an easy way to count. So we'll do some practice and some follow-up work on this. Let us know if you have any questions, and good luck with your work.